All right, so let's write our basic HTML. I'm just going to do Control plus to make this a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit easier to see. We don't need all of that. Let me just move this out of the way. So you can do Control plus and minus in order to make the text bigger or smaller if you have a hard time seeing it. So the very first thing we need to do, if you remember, is to let it know that, see, it already knew, that this is an HTML5 document. So it just looks just like this, the exclamation point doc type HTML. Then what we need to do is tell it when the HTML starts and when it ends. So just HTML like that, and it will automatically give me the closing one. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit that. All right, so everything we're going to write is going to fit right inside of this guy here. The next thing we do is there's two main sections, if you remember. There's the head, which tells the browser, whatever's reading this, which would be the browser generally, what information about our document here. And then there's the body, which will actually hold the content. So we're going to do the head first, right? So head, and then inside of our head, we need to have our title. So let's just go to title, like so. And then our title will just be about Cone, because I'm just going to make it about me, because that's what you always should. It should always be about me. All right. Now there's other information we can put in here as well, but we're going to leave that alone. We're actually going to deal with that in the next assignment in this series. In order to make it responsive, we need to add a meta tag. But for this, that's all we're going to do. That's good enough at this point. So the other thing we need to do is body. And if you remember, the title is the thing that shows up in the tab. So it'll say about Cone up on the tab at the top of the site there, of the web page. So body, and we don't need all this gap here. Let's get right there. Okay, so now we have the body, and from here, notice that I also tabbed in here. Technically, the head and the body could also be tabbed in, but if we start tabbing in too early, then we end up like way out here. So I'm only going to tab just the stuff inside the head and the body. All right, so we'll tab in, and now what I want to do is have a big title here. So my largest heading is the H1. So we're just gonna again write about Cone. Real creative here. Now to do my picture, instead of just doing an image, I'm gonna put it inside of a figure. If you remember, a figure is basically it's something that holds the image and and text about the image. So you do figure, and then it also gives you big caption. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put an img src. Okay, because we got to give it that attribute. And then it'll be images / and then it's the name of the image. So if you don't remember, so just actually let me do this real quick so it's image like that, right? But we have to give it a property to tell the information about like this, right? Information of where to get it. And so we put in an attribute called src for source, and then we need to tell it where it is. Now this, I'm going to minimize this. Right now we are working on this folder, okay, or this file. This file is going to look in for a relative URL, meaning we could do an absolute as well, but we're going to use relative URL. So what we have to do is give it a file path. So if it's looking around itself, we need to do images, that's the folder, and then we need to do this text here, okay? So I'm actually just going to click on it and then make sure I grab the whole thing like this, and Control C to copy that text, right? Or you can just memorize it. It's not that hard, a bit of text. Okay, and then we're going to go back here. Oops, let's minimize you. And then we're just going to write that in there. So it's images / and then it already knew anyway. There you go. Images, blah, blah, blah. And that is great. Now, the other thing that would be good is that I might need to control the size, because right now the size of the image might end up being really big, might end up being really small. I might want more information about it. Now, if I hover over, you can see it's 233 by 300. I'm just going to go ahead and go with that dimension. If it doesn't give you that, if you right click, and then I think it's like get info or something on a Mac. There's also properties here on a PC. It should give you, let me see, details. It should give you the size here. This works for videos as well. So just if you need to figure out what the dimensions are, you can find it that way. Sometimes they'll, depending on what your settings are, they'll actually tell you on the side as well. On a Mac, I think it usually does, right? Also, when you preview it, it will actually tell you the dimension. So it was 233 by 300. So I'm just going to copy. I'm just going to do those same dimensions just to make sure that it's absolutely right. It will be that by default, but just for the sake of, I don't know, being whatever. So true 33. You don't have to put px because it'll know that it's pixels by default. And then height, and it was 300. Okay, just like that. And that's good. There's no closing tag. This is what we call an open element, right? There's no opening and closing tag for this element. This element is just the one. That's because it's not wrapping anything, right? It is the content, as opposed to like this H1, which is wrapping. It's telling how to present this data. This is the data, right? This is just the link to something. It's not going around anything. All right. So after that, we're just going to go ahead and put our fig caption, and that's what whole reason we did this figure. So fig caption. My fig pudding. So look upon my majesty. Right? That sounds great. I like that. Okay. So then, so there's my figure. The next thing to do is we're just going to do an H2. So H2, right? So it's like my next subheading. And I'm just going to say, I am cone. That's pretty great. And then underneath that, we're just going to put some content. Okay. This content could honestly be anything. Doesn't really matter. Just write whatever you feel like. And so I just wrote, yup, that is all you need to know. I am a sentient, primitive object used to direct the public away. In this case, I am used as an example. If you just want to use lorem ipsum, if you remember, you just look up lipsum.com. So you go to, let me go here. You would just go lipsum.com. You can go in here and this lipsum.com. And you go here, generate lorem ipsum, and then you can just copy chunks of this. If you want to just use that, that's fine as well. All right. I'm just putting actual content because why not? All right. So after that, I'm just going to go ahead and do another H2, another subheading, and we'll just say I am so much more. Okay. And then underneath that, we're just going to go ahead and we will do a P per paragraph. This is actually not true. I was just trying to draw you into the next paragraph, and it worked. Sucker. Okay. And there we go. So now we have our basic HTML. That looks pretty good. Nothing too fancy, right? It's just, some paragraphs, some headings. We got our header, body. We got our basic formatting here. And the next one we'll do is we'll actually add some CSS, which will make this look a little bit better. Just go ahead, and what you want to do is save this, Control S, and then we can actually preview it. So I'm just going to go down here, I'm going to open up the site, and if you just double click on it, the default, which apparently mine is Microsoft Edge or whatever the stupid web browser is that they're using. But if you double click on it, you can see what we have, and we have something that looks like this, and that looks like a thing. Okay, so on the next one, we'll actually format this to look a little bit better. All we really did at this point, if you remember, HTML is about putting the content.